760 on the GMAT. My name is Dave, and I want to say hello to everybody. And before we get started, I just want to make sure that you all can hear me okay, because otherwise, what are we doing here? So you could just tell me in the chat, hello, Faiza, echo. You're saying that I'm echoing. Is everyone else hearing that as well? So I can try and fix that. I'd like some feedback from some other of you if you can hear me all right or not. It is better now. Okay. Are all the rest of you guys hearing me okay? Just like to know from one person. Thank you, Sashi. Okay, great. So as I said, my name is Dave, and what we're going to do in the next hour is talk about how to build a study plan to get the highest possible score on the GMAT. And before we do, we're gonna hear for a few minutes from our CEO, Lauren Jackman, about who we are at ExamPal, just in case you guys don't know. And then we'll hop right into the topics. So be with you guys in a few minutes. Without further ado, here's Lauren Jackman.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Jackman, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of ExamPal. I've been in the field of test prep for the past 23 years. And before we dive into the webinar, I'd like to give you a brief introduction into what we at ExamPal can do for you. If you've already signed up, you have full access to our video lessons, and you probably know that our team is there for you to answer any questions you may have. So what is ExamPal? We started ExamPal with the understanding that students all around the world pay too much and they do it for the wrong product. But they only realize that after they complete their preparation, when it's too late. What are they missing? Do you know this feeling when someone explains something to you and you just don't get it? We all do, right? Now, imagine what it's like to prepare for admissions tests such as GMAT, GRE, or SAT. The questions in these tests can have up to 10 different possible solution strategies, and all you need to do is find the fastest one. The thing is that students all around the world are bombarded with thousands of practice questions, tips, tricks, and shticks that are there to help everybody the same way. But there's no such thing as the explanation. I've personally taught over 5,000 students over the years, and when a novice teacher comes to me and asks, say, how do you explain this question? My answer is, to whom? That's ExamPal in a nutshell. To whom? We don't just explain what makes the correct answer correct. We first ask ourselves, who are you? ExamPal does three things no one else does. First, it studies the way you think. Second, it studies the effectiveness of all different possible solution strategies. Your goal is to be fast and correct. If there's a faster way, we'll find it. And third, using this information, we find the best way to solve each question. The best for you. Not even private tutors do this. We're with you in each and every question, from basics to the hardest ones. When we offer you a solution strategy, we don't just guess it works. We measure everything. So, just to summarize the pain, test takers spend a lot of time and money preparing for admissions tests only to realize that courses, the brick and mortar classroom courses, are frustrating. There can be 10 different ways to solve each question. How can I find which way is best for me? Ineffective. Your biggest enemy is time. How can one-size-fits-all course tell you which way is the most effective for you to save time? And time-consuming. You're wasting too much time on thousands of questions and tips that are irrelevant to you. Shouldn't you focus only on what you need? Now, there's a far greater revolution happening here, and that's in the understanding of what preparing for these exams really means. These tests are unlike the tests you had in high school. Mastering admissions tests is not about knowledge. These tests measure a skill called cognitive flexibility, which is your ability to change your set of tools very quickly according to the changes in the data that you're getting. This is why the test has harsh time constraints, and we keep moving from algebra to geometry to word problems very quickly. So example doesn't just provide you with the knowledge you need for the test, we train you to find the fastest way to solve each question. How do we do that? Our process starts with interactive video lessons. While you study our course studies you, and it's fun. Each topic starts with a short video teaser, usually a funny one, that will make you wait for the next lesson. As one of our students put it, I'm becoming addicted. So we start off with an introduction that gives you all the basic tools you need, whether it is formulas or the logic behind a new concept, and we move from there to the lesson, in which we demonstrate how different questions from the test can be solved using different approaches. Next, our special source, practice. Each practice session starts with a diagnostic phase. We found out that even when there are 10 ways to solve a question, they can all be divided into 3 strategies: precise, alternative, or logical. This is the PAL behind the name example. In the diagnostic phase, we analyze how well you are using each strategy. This question, for example, can be solved logically by figuring out the ratio between the numerator and the denominator, precisely by simplifying the algebraic expression, or alternatively by using simple numbers. Only one answer can be correct, right? So in the diagnostic phase, we quickly learn what your level is in implementing each of these tools. Then comes the improvement phase, in which we focus on your level and find the best questions for you to solve in order to improve your skills. That's not just being adaptive like the test is. Simply giving you easier or harder questions won't do the trick. We find out exactly which tools work best for you and what were the reasons for your mistakes. And then comes the best part. In the optimization phase, both practice questions and solution strategies are chosen to match your own personal needs. In this example, the system found 4 solution strategies ranked in order of relevance to you. In professional terms, this is an open, semi-supervised recommendation system. In other words, this is moving from machine learning to machine teaching, from deep learning to deep teaching, scanning through the ideas of others in order to find the one that is easiest for you to understand and implement. Just to give you a broader understanding of what makes example so special, we're the first company to utilize artificial intelligence in a new innovative approach. Artificial intelligence can be described as moving from machines that replace humans to machines that behave like humans. Well, we're in a mission to create a tool that behaves better than humans. If we want an online service to be able to teach, it must have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of real people. It is our over 50,000 students from 156 countries who help us teach you. Our students teach us how to teach them. And it works. The effect is amazing. Research shows that an average student using example reaches the highest possible level within segments of just 30 questions per topic. These are some of the global awards that we won over time for education, innovation, and AI. And students love it. Example has blown my mind. It helped me improve by 180 points, etc. And last, but certainly not least, we give you a real success guarantee. 70 points in the GMAT, up to 7 points in the GRE. And I'm using the term real because we're not one of these places where improvement is measured relatively to a mock test you've done when you had no clue about anything. If you have a previous score that you're not satisfied with, an official score, we guarantee that you are going to improve it significantly. So, just to give you a quick look at some of the benefits you get with Example. First of all, one approach to rule them all. That's the PAL approach. Video lessons that cover everything from the basics to the hardest questions. personalized practice using our innovative system, tutor support around the clock. We're there 7 days a week in surprising hours. Try us. Real official GMAT mocks as part of the course, plus you get GMAT Club tests if you need more practice. Essay reviews by professional raters, a big difference for non-native English speakers. You are not just measured on the verbal section. Admissions consultancy, 60 minutes free admissions consultancy comes with any of our packages. And of course, an engaging experience that will keep you studying for hours. So now for today's webinar, and we're looking forward to having you on board. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Oren. So that's who we are. And now, without further ado, let's start talking about today's webinar. I will just say, for those of you who are interested, at the end of the webinar, stick around. We're going to offer all webinar attendees a coupon for a special discount as a token of our appreciation for being with us today. So stick around all this time that I'm talking. Don't go anywhere, because it's just going to get better. So let's start talking about it. How do you build a study plan? So I think that the first question that you should be asking yourself when you start thinking about this question is, how long am I going to study? And actually, this question can itself be broken up into two sub-questions, two smaller questions. Okay, so the first one is, how much should I study in total? How many hours? Is it 50 hours, 100 hours, 200 hours? I'm actually curious what your guys' guesses on what the answer to that I'm going to give in a few minutes is going to be. If you want to tell me in the chat. But we'll get there in a minute anyway. And the second question is, over how long a period should I spread my study plan over? Should it be over a month, 2 months, a year, my entire adulthood? What? So we're going to talk right now about the first question, and then we're going to present several different answers for the second question throughout this entire webinar, because in many ways it's somewhat more of a complicated question. So let's start with some concrete data. So we recently had a webinar in which we spoke with one of the GMATs. It's the people who write the test. One of the GMAT senior directors, Vineet Chabra, and he shared the following data with us. So take a look. It's on your screen. There's kind of a lot of data there. So we'll take a minute to absorb it. And I'm not gonna go over everything here really, but I'm gonna sort of point your attention towards a few things. So first, let's start actually kind of from the end. On the bottom right corner, look at that, it's written there, those that score at least 600 study on average 122 hours. Okay, and now let's look on the left side, and very left side, median number of hours of preparation by GMAT score. And you can really see here how, as the number of hours goes up, the score grows in accordance, okay? Which makes sense. And I will say that many of the people who get 700 are people who do the test second or third time, retakers, and they actually might need less time of preparation for their final testing. But in general, the trend is clear. The more you study, the more people seem to score. So this is the GMAT data, of course, not ours. I'm going to address the questions for a second. Two people asked already, you can get a recording. The answer is yes. All of you are here now signed up. You'll get a recording later. And if you have any more questions throughout the chat, keep them coming. So based on this data, and also based on our own experience, we recommend studying for between 100 and 120 hours in total. Okay? And we recommend adding to that another extra 30 hours for non-native English speakers. Okay? the middle graph from what we were just looking at actually gives a clue to why this is. We'll discuss this soon. So now, this being said, of course, studying for over 100 hours doesn't guarantee that you're going to score 600 or more, nor will studying 122, which is the average score for people who score that much, right? I mean, if you just spend 100 hours sitting in front of a piece of paper or sitting in front of your computer and you're only staring at the question without knowing what to do, or worse, you're just daydreaming, obviously that's not going to get you anywhere. So as with many things in life, it's not just the quantity, it's the quality, right? So, sorry. The real question is, what is going to determine if this 100 to 120 hours plus 30 hours perhaps will be enough? And the answer to that is how you spend them. And we're going to discuss that later, so don't worry, I'm not going to leave you in suspense. So the median number of hours of preparation I mentioned a minute ago gives us a clue as to the fact that people whose native language is not English do need to spend more. So here you can see kind of breakdown by geography of how much time people spend, and it makes sense. It makes sense, right? The verbal section, as well as the analytical writing assessment, they rely heavily on our English skills. So the second, slightly more complicated answer that we have to address is over how long a period of time should you be studying? In other words, how long before you take the exam on the calendar should you start studying? Well, so the real question is, it depends. And the main factor that shapes the answer to this question is how much time do you have? Can you devote all your time to study? Or is this something you have to do alongside all kinds of other things that you do? So all things being equal, though, I do have an answer. I'm not just going to say, it depends and that's it. All things being equal, we recommend 6 to 8 weeks as the recommended amount of time. Why? Well, on the one hand, it's not too short. Studying this long, around 2 months, it gives you enough time to both study and also to breathe a little. So you're not going to get too stressed, overly stressed, as you may try and stuff it into a shorter amount of time. On the other hand, it's also not too long. You're not going to have enough time to start forgetting stuff that you learned at the beginning, which can happen if you study for several months, right? Can you remember everything you learned or read 3 months ago? Not necessarily. So this is why it's kind of a good middle ground. And fitting in 100 to 120 hours is for many people possible to fit into 6 to 8 weeks. It doesn't mean taking up all your time. So if it is possible for you, and as I just said, this is kind of a low bar. Most people who aren't incredibly busy, even if they're working full time, should be able to fit in 100 to 120 hours into 6 to 8 weeks. So if you're one of those people, this is what we recommend. Okay? And to give you an example, let's talk about John Doe. Okay, so this plan is perfect for John Doe and also for anyone else who's anything like John Doe. What is John Doe like? Well, he's a first-time GMAT taker. And this means his study plans have to start basically from scratch. Okay? He's also a native English speaker, meaning he doesn't have to put an emphasis on vocabulary and memorization study. But on the other hand, he should still make sure that to read every day from the newspaper, the daily news media, read maybe a novel at night in order to optimize his reading pace and really get used to reading a lot. Plus, he also should have time to go over all the grammatical rules and memorize them, which is something that native English speakers tend to neglect and tend to pay the price for neglecting. So John works a 9-to-5 job, right? Meaning his studies are going to be in the evenings, they're going to be on the weekends. So he can comfortably schedule about an hour and a half of study in the evenings on the weekdays, and on the weekend he can sit down for 4 hours and study. Okay? So in terms of material, John, he doesn't know what his strengths or weaknesses are ahead of time exactly, but he knows in general that he's naturally good at math and quantitative topics, and he's more worried about the verbal part of the exam. Now, what's good about this plan is that it's flexible enough to suit someone who has constraints during this 2-month period, right? So John, for example, he can, on the one hand, take work off the week prior to the exam and really study hard, which is good. But on the other hand, 3 weeks before the exam, he has a 5-day business trip. He won't be able to study at all. And also, on a different weekend, he's planning a vacation for his birthday and also is not going to study. Okay, so the point of all of this rather elaborate example is not that this plan is only good for someone with these specific constraints, of course, but that it can work for anyone who has some constraints. Constraints that are at more or less the level of what I've just described, which is to say about a week out of the 6 to 8 weeks to not be devoted to study. If it's about a week that you have to do other things, that should be okay. If it's a lot more, if it's 2 or 3 weeks, then this is probably not the plan for you, and we'll get to later to what is the plan for you. Okay, so building a good study plan is possible, but it's less ideal. So what we're going to do now is talk in detail about how to build a 2-month study plan, and then we're going to proceed to outline what a 1-month plan and what a 3-month plan look like. Now, obviously, a lot of us don't have exactly 1, 2, or 3 months, to the day. We have something in between 2 of these options, and in this case, just combine between 2 of the things I'm going to be saying. Build a plan that's some combination of the plans we're about to present. So you should have a lot of range in what I'm about to describe. Another kind of general tip here is if you're retaking the test, everything that I'm going to talk about applies to you as well. You should do the same things again. Retaking the test doesn't mean you should just start from doing a few practice tests and that's it. Before you do start studying, though, take a day or 2 to debrief. What I mean debrief, analyze what you've done until now, and ask yourself what went well, what didn't go so well, and what does all this mean that you should work on. If, for example, you just didn't know things well enough, you just forgot some important formulas, you forgot how many sides in a triangle, say, or obviously something more complicated than that, but if you don't know some of the fundamentals, go back and relearn them. Okay, it's essential to have a firm grasp of these. If you ran out of time, you thought you knew what you were doing, but you just didn't have enough time on the test. So you need to make a detailed plan. This isn't supposed to happen. You need to know how many questions you're going to tackle for every, say, 15-minute chunk of the section, and you really need to have a game plan before you go into the test. If you feel like you just made quote-unquote dumb mistakes, silly mistakes, the kind of mistakes that you do and then you say, oh, that didn't really count. I knew the answer, I just got confused. These are actually the ones that are often most useful, most efficient to spend some time on because they're silly, they can be solved. So think of what can make you not repeat these mistakes. For example, if you just pick the wrong answer, so write down the answers and eliminate them one by one. If you just made a calculation mistake in your head, maybe you need to write these calculations out. If you looked at data sufficiency, combine the data from statement 1 with the data from statement 2, and you should have been looking at them one after the other separately, then maybe you need to kind of block one out with your hand while you're looking at it. There's all kinds of stuff that can be that can really help our performance, even if they seem kind of small. Another thing is you might want to order the ESR, the Enhanced Score Report from the GMAT, which gives you a detailed analysis on your performance. It doesn't tell you everything, but it's definitely more detailed than just having a score. So that's also a good idea. So the first rule for retakers, and really the main rule, is improving means doing what you did again, but doing it better. Don't assume that there's some stuff you just don't need to go over. You can assume, however, that it will take you less time during your first time around, assuming that your first time around was recent. That is something that you can assume. Okay, so that was all for retakers, and now let's hop into the meat of this webinar. Let's talk about what a 2-month study plan looks like. So the operative word here is plan, as in our goal is to know what we're going to do for every day of the next 60 days. This might sound ambitious, but let's break it down and see what I mean. So first thing, before you start planning, ask yourself, what are all the not GMAT things you have to do over the next 60 days, right? For John, we discussed before, it was the week he had to do a presentation at work and the weekend of his birthday. So what stuff like that do you have? Even smaller things, it doesn't have to be an entire weekend. Just the fact that on Monday nights I play basketball with my friends and I don't want to stop doing that. Fine, that's a good thing that you do that, and it's fine that you don't want to study during that time. But write all that stuff down. Be realistic about how much time you're not going to be studying during the next 60 days in order to figure out how much time you will be studying. Don't be optimistic. Often we're very overly optimistic. And you say 60 days, that's so much time. Then we forget about stuff that will take away from our study time. After you do that and you have a picture of the times when you can study, is when you should budget around 100 to 120 hours of study time, or 30 more for non-native English speakers. Sorry about that. My dog is getting sick. As I mentioned before, this is very doable over a 2-month work period, even 2-month period rather, even if you are working or you're in school. And if you see that you don't have enough time, this is the point in your plan in which you see, I don't have enough time to budget this many hours, so probably you need to be going for the 3-month plan, and we'll be talking about that in just a few minutes. But you can, I guess, stop listening for a few minutes now, because you're not going to be doing the 2-month plan if you can't budget this many hours. But most of you will be able to budget, which is why this is the recommended one. So what do you need to do? You need to schedule specific times of day for studying when you're both A, available, and B, realistically, you're going to be able to actually study. Okay, it doesn't help to budget 4 hours of studying between 10 p.m. that is, and 2 a.m. You're going to be completely exhausted and tired and aren't really focused. Okay, so after we finish this, you will know when you're studying. And now let's talk about what we're going to study, how we're going to spend that time we just set aside for study. So the first 47 days, give or take a day or two, but basically the first 47 days is going to be made up of subject review and practice. Okay, so the first thing you should do is make a list of all the GMAT topics, not just verbal and quant, but all of the many subtopics which make up the quant section as well. There's lots and lots of subtopics in quant. Now on ExamPal, on our courses, it's actually automatic. You don't really need to make a list because our course is built up of the relevant subtopics which you tackle one by one in a logical manner, logical fashion. Okay, so once you know what there is to study, what you need to do is plan a 2-day mini schedule for each subject that looks like this. On the first day, you're going to want to review fundamental material. So, I mean, learn the topic, right? Learn the properties, learn how many sides there are in a triangle, start there, and then go learn about the Pythagoras theorem, and on and on. So, with ExamPal, this entails watching, for each section, we have the intro video. You watch that first in order to make sure you know the basic rules, the terminology. Then moving on to a lesson video, which gives you an experience of real test questions and answer strategies. Okay, and while you're doing these things, while you're watching or however else you study, I recommend compiling 2 separate lists. The first is a summary of the material, if this is the type of thing that helps you study. For a lot of people it does. Just a general summary, these are the rules, these are the formulas, these are the things I need to remember. And the second thing is a list of practical tips for question solving. An example, this is more from the lesson videos. The first summary will be more based on our intro videos. The practical tips is based on our lesson videos. But in general, this is answer strategies. This is not like stuff that's just about the material itself, but stuff about how I actually can solve this material. Right? When I see an inequality, it's useful to simplify it by moving it to both sides and compare it to 0. Something like that. The example is not so important, but the point is keep a list of practical tips, especially when you start practicing, you will have tips of how to actually do well. which brings us to practicing. So on the second day of each mini schedule is when you're going to be solving subject-related questions, right? So say you have this whole 2-day mini schedule for the topic of triangles. So the first day you studied what there is to study about triangles. The second day you go and practice. And example, this means completing our practice phase, which itself is built up of 3 separate phases: diagnostic, improvement, and then optimization. Here too, you're not just going to be going blindly through the material to practice questions, but I want you to also here to be keeping some lists. Okay, so one is a list of mistakes. So it's important to study, to learn from your mistakes. And I recommend making a list of mistakes, not of every single mistake, but of mistake types, right? This is a mistake I made because I forgot the Pythagoras theorem. This is a mistake I made because I didn't realize that the external angle to a triangle equals the 2 internal angles that aren't next to it. This is a mistake I made because I made a calculation mistake. Those are all, it can be all different types of mistakes, but make a list of them. Put an example of a specific question, a specific mistake you made, and most importantly, think, what is your conclusion? How are you going to avoid making a mistake? And write that down as well. And based on this, you should be updating your tips list, which we already described, based on these mistakes and successes. Okay? So this is your 2-day mini schedule. So what's left is to divide your time among all the different sections in accordance with your situation. As I mentioned on example, we have a general structure of the topics which we recommend to go by, because there's some topics that have to go before others. They form the basis. You need to learn the basics of geometry before you move on to quadrilaterals, and so on. But you can plan to spend a little more time on stuff that you are weaker on, and vice versa. Generally, you should plan to hit a topic every 2 days. Okay, and when it's 47 days, they are enough to hit all of the subtopics of the GMAT. If you have exactly 60 days and not a few days more, you will have to fit a few topics into 1 day, just a few, and these should be ones that you find easier. If you have a few more days than 60 days, you can give every single topic 2 days. Okay, so in addition to this whole subject review, the whole time you're also going to be having this running daily routine of reading magazine articles, preferably economics, computer science, social science, stuff like that, and also going over your vocabulary and memorization lists, which are taken from the vocabulary and memorization section. Okay? If you're a non-native English speaker, this part is going to be essential for coping with the verbal section. It should take you at least an hour and a half a day. Okay? So all this said, take at least 1 day off a week. You will need it. Okay? Don't sell yourself short. After this, days 48, 50 should be unscheduled. They should be left open. Why? Well, you never know what's going to come up during 60 days. That's going to make you need to use these days. Maybe something will come up that'll make you want to have time to study, and then you can shift that topic which you don't have time for in these days. Maybe nothing like that comes up, but you just find that you're having a really hard time grasping the Pythagorean theorem, just to keep using the same example. So instead of spending 3 days on triangles and having your whole schedule kind of mixed up, you can move on and say, okay, I'm going to get to this in one of these unscheduled days at the end. So that gives you some flexibility. Okay, and after that, the last 10 days, this is the home stretch here. So let's talk about what you need to do. And this time, this should be devoted to 2 things. First thing is review. Every other day of these last 10 days, you should be going over 2 or 3 major topics. This includes fundamentally reviewing sections or subjects that you've seen are problematic for you. It means going over your own material summary, which you've written. The point here is really to get to the stage where this summary is boring to you because what's in it is obvious. Not because the material is boring, because Because what's in it is obvious, and if I woke you up in the middle of the night and I asked you about the Pythagorean theorem, you would know. And also going over your practical tips list. Here, the goal isn't only to remember them, but to actually check, have I been implementing them? You know, on day 20, I wrote to myself that I want to be in questions that have a variable in the question, and in the answer choices, I want to be plugging in a number. Have I been implementing it since day 20? If not, let's start now. And of course, going over your mistakes list. Here, the goal is not only to understand your past mistakes, as in, oh, I see now why this is the wrong answer, and I understand why this correct answer is something else, but to be confident that you will avoid repeating a similar mistake in a similar question. So that's what you do on your review days. Every other day, and this is the big thing, you're going to be doing practice tests. Okay, the GMAT CATs, and you're going to do them from start to finish. So if you can take a few days off of work, try and do it at the same time, same hour of day as your real test is going to be if it's in the morning. And then when you do that, spend the afternoon reviewing your test. Okay, analyze it, see what you were good at, see what you weren't good at, what are your conclusions, what you need to work on, and then use the rest of the day after analyzing for solving questions that are similar to the ones that you got wrong, either on ExamPal or in the OG official guide. Okay? And we're almost done, guys. I hope you're excited. On day 59, on the day before the test, you can and should relax, breathe, reach out to people you have probably been ignoring for the past 2 months. But don't party too hard or anything, because most importantly, get a good night's sleep. Next day, D-Day, do what you know how to do, right? Ace the GMAT, you should be prepared. So let's just take a look at John's plan. We described John in the beginning, and now I described to you what he's going to be doing, how he actually built his plan. So let's look at just a kind of average weekend study plan. So as you can see, he studies about 3 hours per day on the weekdays, right? Between 5 and 8 or 8:30, so more or less 3 hours. And he devotes, oh, sorry, that was actually on a Tuesday. Anyway, no, he spends about 3 hours, including everything, a day on weekdays, and about half of that time is devoted to vocabulary work. He specifically he works on his vocabulary in the morning, and then he reads at night. And the other half, an hour and a half, is spent on review or practice of a certain topic. Okay, and then he spends another 4 or even more hours on weekends, on Sunday. Now, note, he does have enough time both for his job and also for other pursuits. He goes to the gym 3 times a week. And this week, he has a social event 1 day a week. And he takes an entire day off every week. And he can do that. With another 7 weeks that look a lot like this one. And remember, John, one of those weeks, actually, he's not going to be studying at all. But anyway, another 7 weeks that most of them look like this one, it's still enough time for him to study and prepare comprehensively over 2 months, even giving the time he has to give off. And once again, the point is not that your plan will look exactly like this. We all have to customize to our own personal schedules, but the point is that you have a schedule that looks something like this. You have to work, and you also have some other constraints. This plan is still possible for you, and in fact is recommended. Okay, what if your schedule is not like this? What if, by the way, guys, I hope everything is clear so far. If not, feel free to ask me in the chat, and I'll try and answer out loud. And if I don't have time, we'll answer in writing now or later. Anyway, so what if, however, you've been bored for the past 15 minutes because ever since I described John, you've been saying, I'm nothing like that. My schedule is nothing like that. For example, what if you don't have 2 months? What if you just suddenly remembered you have to take a GMAT and you need to do it in 30 days because that's the only way you're going to have time to apply to the school you want to? So this is hard, but it is possible. Even if you have a job and you can't devote your entire life for studying, it's specifically possible if you're someone like Larry. So let's talk now about Larry. So Larry also, like John, he has to take GMAT in a month. First of all, that's kind of the opening the condition here. But like John, he also has a full-time job. However, unlike John, he's willing to devote basically all of the time, all of his free time working. He isn't working to study. Okay, he has 3 hours to study every weekday after work. And crucially, he specifically is planning work. He's planning study, sorry, for 14 hours on the weekend. A lot of time, but he's willing to do that. I'll get that in a second. So if Larry's prepared to work hard, and if you are anything like him and you have 1 month and are willing to work hard as well, while difficult, it is possible. And we're going to talk about how now. First, though, let's just talk about the cons of this situation, especially if you're someone who just thinks he's going to do it in 30 days because, why not? I can, why not? So there's some pretty obvious cons here. First of all, there's a lot of pressure, and I think that's pretty obvious why. And secondly, it's going to be quite difficult to find a work-study balance. You're not going to be too much fun over the next couple of weeks, and that's an understatement. You really won't have time to see your friends almost at all. On the other hand, not all is bad. There are a few pros to the situation. You study over such a short time, it literally means that you're going to be fresh and you're going to be sharp, and you're not going to have enough time to forget almost anything. Right? People who study over a longer period of time have to start reviewing material at a certain point because they start forgetting. This is not going to be a problem for you. Plus, if you're working with ExamPal, so ExamPal automatically feeds you questions which incorporate material you've already done. For example, when you study coordinate geometry, the questions repeat the principles of triangles and quadrilaterals and circles and polygons, which means that you're constantly revising the material even while you're learning the material. So that's a pro for this scenario, specifically if you're working with ExamPal. So if this is the situation, say goodbye to your friends and family. Promise to call them in a month or so when you have time to restore your relationships with them, and let's plan. Okay, so here's what a 30-day plan consists of. It consists of daily study. With 30 days to go, you won't have too many days off, okay? Still, though, as we said for 60 days, be realistic. Do try and think ahead of all of the time, the non-GMAT things you'll have to do, and build a schedule around them. You may, have to forego some things. You may not have time to do a lot of social things, but if you have stuff that you absolutely have to do, it's not a game changer necessarily, as long as it's not too many of them, and you can build a schedule around them. This being said, I still advise you to take a 1 day off a week and use it to do something really fun. It's important. Even though we're stressed for time, it's really hard to study for 30 days in a row, or even it's hard to study for more than 7 days in a row. So take a day off. Okay, so now let's talk about an actual schedule itself. So what we did before in 47 days, now we're going to do in 20 days. 20 days to review the test material. So as we did before, we're going to make a list of all the topics. We're going to plan a mini schedule for each topic. So this time it's going to be around one topic per day, not one topic for 2 days. If you have exactly 30 days, it's going to be even a little bit quicker than that. There are going to be a few topics you're going to have to fit into more than 1 day, and most of the topics. A few topics are going to have to fit more than one topic per day. Most topics you'll fit in one per day. Okay? So what's left after this is to divide your time between the different sections in accordance with your situation. So again, every day plan to work on a different section, fitting in both a review of the fundamental material, during which, of course, we're going to be keeping the same lists we discussed before, the material summary, practical tips, and also solving problems, say in the afternoon or whenever. An example how this entails during the practice phase once again, also not forgetting to review what we've been solving and updating our practical tips list. In addition, even though we're stressed for time, here as well, we should still try hard to maintain a daily routine of working on the vocabulary skills, 1.5 hours ideally. If not, then do at least an hour, or however much you can do really. Read articles, go over your vocabulary memorization lists, which are taken on ExamPal from our vocabulary and memorization section There's a whole list there. Okay, so here days 21, 28, the last 10 days more or less. As with the 2-month plan, you're going to be doing 2 things. On every other day, you're going to be reviewing 2 or 3 topics, skimming material, going over notes, doing typical questions, updating your lists. And on every day that you're not doing that, every other day you're not doing that, you should be taking the GMAT CATs. Okay? Again, if you can, do it at the same time that you're going to do the GMAT, and then spend the rest of the day analyzing and solving questions similar to those you got wrong. Day 29, the day before the test, what should you be doing? You guys got, can you guess what I'm saying? If you've been paying attention, you should be able to guess. You should take it off, okay? Give yourself that day to breathe. You've been working hard, and maybe plan a delicious meal, although again, make it light and early, and don't drink any alcohol, or at least not too much. And anyway, take the day off to relax, and the next day, walk into the test center refreshed, relaxed, and motivated, and ace the test. So Larry, who we described before, let's take a look at a week in his schedule. So take a second to look at what it actually looks like. And as you can see, it's quite a bit tighter than John's before. Larry goes straight from verbal study in the morning to work, back to studying, topic review, and then more verbal work in the evening. Right, and then he does give himself a day off on the weekend, which is important. But on the other day, on the weekend that he doesn't give himself a day off, he really studies dusk to dawn. Of course, he doesn't have to do this. He could also work Saturday and Sunday, just half day both days, and relax the other half of the day. It's also possible, but this is how he does it. And although this isn't easy, I think you will agree that it is possible, and within 30 days, he will be prepared for the test, and so can you, if your situation is something like this and you're willing to work this hard. Okay, so we've gone over the time that we recommend you spend on the test. This is 2 months, and how you can do so. And we've gone over how you can prepare very quickly if you have to. What about, though, the other extreme? What if you have very little time in your daily schedule or your weekly schedule to devote to study? And on the other hand, you can postpone the test for a little bit. You don't have to take it right away. So in this case, it might make sense to build a 3-month study plan. Okay, this plan might make sense for someone, to give another example, say like Tammy. Okay, so Tammy is a first-time test taker, but she has a very, very busy life. Okay, she both has a job, but also her evenings are mostly not free. In fact, let's say she can set aside only 2 hours of studying 3 times a week during the work week, okay? And she can't take off any work before the test. Okay, she can study significantly more on the weekends, thankfully. But she also has some big constraints. A month in, she has a family vacation for a whole week. And a month after that, she has to take a few days off because she has to prepare something big at work, big presentation. Okay, so these types of time pressures, which are, they might sound similar to say what John had at the beginning, but they're bigger, both on average and per every regular week, and both kind of in general, she has more big things. This kind of time pressure is what pushes someone like Tammy to go for a 90-day plan in the first place, okay? And since she's starting from scratch, she's not really sure what she's good at, and she wants to budget an equal amount of time for all subjects. So if this sounds anything like you, this may be the plan for you. And we're going to tell you how to do it. However, before we do that, let's reiterate. This plan is meant for those of you that are indeed extremely busy. It's not recommended if your goal is simply to just study a lot and you think the more time studying, the merrier. It's not actually the case. And the truth is 3 months is a very long time to study for the GMAT. And in many ways, it might be too long. The concern is that by the time you wrap up your studies, you will have forgotten a great deal of what you studied before, okay? And also at a certain point, studying really becomes exhausting and less effective. And for all these reasons, studying for long really isn't necessary. Remember, you should be aiming for 100 to 120 hours in total. And over 3 months, if you do the math, it's barely an hour per day on average. Okay, so a 9-day study plan really makes sense only if you have very little time during the day to spread your studies out. If this is not the case, it may make sense, say you have to, but you do have to take a test in 3 months from now, but you have a better schedule, it may actually make sense to delay your studies by a month. To start your studies in a month and then do the 60-day plan, which is the optimal amount of time. Another relevant scenario in which you might want to do this plan is if you're a non-native English speaker and you need to brush up on your language skills. If this is the case, we recommend devoting, say, the upcoming month, if you have to take a test in 3 months, so we recommend devoting the upcoming month to improving your language skills. Devote some serious amount of time each day to reading magazine articles, to reading newspapers, and going over verbal material. And following this, begin a 60-day study plan, which we've already discussed before. So go back to what I said before. Okay, so these are kind of people for whom the plan might not be right for, but if it is right for you, so how are you going to do it? So one thing is that if you're going to go for it, it's a good idea to find someone else who's going to do it and make him or her your real life exam pal. Okay, you have one exam pal on your computer, but it's not a bad idea to also have a living human one. It's also a good idea for the other study plans, but for 3 months, I think especially useful. Someone you can meet with once or twice a week, either to study or at least to discuss your progress. It'll make studying more enjoyable, more efficient. More efficient because the best way to really make sure you understand something is doing it. Believe me. So now let's get down to the nitty-gritty, how to make the most of the 90 days. So the general structure of the plan is going to be similar, but more, of course, more spread out than what we've been talking about so far. So here we're going to be spending no less than 77 days. It's a lot of time. 77 days studying the material itself. So this means we can build a 3-day mini schedule for each subtopic. Sorry, this says 1 day, but it should say 3 days. 3-day mini schedule for each subtopic. Okay, on the first day, you'll be studying fundamental material, right? As we mentioned before, I'm not going to go into it, but don't forget to keep your summary list, your tips list going. On the second day, you should practice subject-related questions. And the third day, you can devote to review. Go over mistakes from the day before, from the practice day, and go over the conclusions from your tips list, see if they're being implemented, think of new ones to add. Take the day to reflect if you understand the topic well enough, and if not, what you should do about it. So these are your first 77 days. After that, once again, we have a few days unscheduled, so that, as if you have to push things back, you'll be able to, as we've already discussed. And the last 10 days are similar to those of the other plans. You should devote every other day to topic review. Every other day that you're not devoting topic review should be devoted to practice tests. Okay? The day off, once again, take the day off. The day before the test, take it off. And on test day, do what you've been studying 3 months for and ace the test. Okay? So, given all of the above, this is how Tammy's plan looks. Let's take a look at it for a second. So, as you can see, it's based on only about an hour and a half studying on weekdays, not counting the verbal work, but a fundamental material study. And even that's only 3 work days a week. She's studying in the evening, but she also has another 2 work days where she has other things. She's spending time with her family. She's going to drama class. Good for her. So she studies an hour and a half per week. And on the weekend, she studies another few hours. Here she studies 6 hours, but you can even say there's 4 hours in the final work. Um, and still she has a day off. You can't see it here, but on another week of her schedule, she has this business trip for a week. And even given all these constraints, she has enough time to fit all the necessary material in, and so will you if your situation is anything like her and you do this plan, so that you can arrive at test day 90 days from now, ready to go, get a good score. So this is the review of the study plans. But whichever study plan you use, there are a few other tips that I want to go over with you guys that are relevant for all three of them. So first one is silence is golden. What I mean by that, you can tell from the image maybe, is your phone should really be silenced, and it should also be in a different room, preferably under a pillow or in a drawer, or under a pillow inside of a drawer. Your browser, you're on your computer, shouldn't have any other tabs open except for exampal.com. And you should have a study place without a lot of other people around. Okay? You also don't, trust me, I checked, and you don't have to get up and go to the fridge every 20 minutes to check for updates. If anything happens in there, we'll tell you. But really, you need a place where you can sit, think, and be focused in relative silence. If you're having trouble grasping something, so you need to ask yourself what exactly you're having, what kind of trouble you're having, okay? If it's something small, okay, you're having a hard time understanding the rules of how angles between parallel lines, which angles are equal to each other and which ones aren't. So if it's something kind of technical, so don't get postponed, don't get hung up over it, but you can push it back to the review days. That's what they're there for, okay? If it's something though fundamental, and you just feel like, I don't feel like I really understand parallel lines. It's a complicated concept. I'm not sure I understand it. So do devote more time to it. Okay. Prolong the time devoted to the topic itself, stealing from some other topic that you feel stronger about. So I'm going to give the subject of parallel lines. Here I'm going to give 4 days even, and I'm going to leave sets only 2 days because I feel better about that. Okay. You shouldn't, however, by any means erase subjects from your schedule entirely. Even if it's one you feel really good about, even if you won the state championships in sets, if that were a thing, still don't erase it entirely. You can shorten it, but leave yourself time to go over it. Okay, being good at something is nice, but why not be great if you can? Another thing to realize, another important tip, is that mistakes are opportunities. I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard that line, but it's true. So you should research every mistake that you make and ask yourself, why did it happen? What do I need to do differently? Keep, as we've mentioned before, but I am going to repeat it because I think it's important, keep a running list of different mistake types you do, a running list of examples and tips on how to approach them correctly. I think you're better off doing 500 questions and really understanding them than doing 10,000 questions kind of blindly or robotically. Get 8 hours of sleep every night, and I won't add anything because it's just that simple. And exercise is recommended. It'll only help. So that's the long and short of it, you guys. But before we finish, those of you who are still here, which from what I can tell seems like all of you, most of you, we wanted to say thank you for participating with us in our webinar, being so attentive, and we want to present you as a token of gratitude a special offer for all of you people and all of you people only for the next 48 hours. So during that time, our packages on Exampal are 25% off. Don't take my word for it, but go to exampal.com and use the coupon study plan 25 off when you check out, and you will see. And don't forget, we also have a money-back guarantee, 30 days if you decide not to use it eventually. So really no reason not to do it. Keep in mind, if you've already taken the GMAT before, you will be eligible also for our Success Guarantee program, which Oren was talking about at the very beginning of this hour, wherein we guarantee 70 points improvement over a official previous GMAT scores. Go to our site for more details on this. So that's it, guys. I hope this helped you to think of how to spend your weeks and months prior to the GMAT. Go to exampal.com, sign up, hear from us, get the recording of this webinar to hear my words of wisdom once again. Write us on exampal.com. Write us in the chat if you want to ask questions. And also, I am still here now to answer questions that you have, any questions right now, any burning questions. So I'm going to stick around together with Kareem, who's helping me. So I'll be putting my mic on mute, but I'll be around to answer some questions. Thank you guys once again for dropping by, and see you all at ExamPal. Have a good one.